Okay, so in the sort of true traditions of select committees, we're going to call our next witness in the terminology of select committees, and perhaps I should also use the word guest, of course, as well today. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Maciej Onwurah. She's the Member of Parliament for Newcastle-upon-Tyne Central, the Labour Party. She was first elected in 2010. And is an engineer. I won't run through your CV, Chi, everyone's got that, but I'd be very happy to hear more about it. And I suppose in the sort of standard way that select committees operate, could I just perhaps invite you to start off by saying a few words about yourself and making an opening statement? Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you very much, Mark, and thanks to the Royal Society of Biology and all the learned institutions for inviting me to give evidence or to be a guest at the Voice of the Future. It really is a pleasure to be here. I'm the Member of Parliament for Newcastle-upon-Tyne Central, and I'm also the Shadow Minister for Digital Science and Research. And I'm a chartered engineer by background who spent 20 years in the telecoms industry before coming into Parliament. And I suppose I like to say that I became an MP for exactly the same reasons I went into engineering in the first place, which is to make the world work better for everyone. I think that politics and science are the sort of the twin engines of progress. And I think that it is up to government to support and shape that progress, if you like, in the interests of the people. I am, delighted to be the Labour spokesperson for on science, particularly, and I am proud of the UK's strong science history background, and I hope even stronger science future. I think we need to have a long-term sort of funding and strategy and vision for science. And I do think that has been sadly lacking over the last few years. And I'm very interested to hear what the future generation of scientists I think that need from the Shadow Science Minister and our government and policies.
Thank you very much for that introduction and for setting the scene for us. As I think you know, this morning we've got a number of early career scientists and engineers who have asked to ask questions, which we're going to run through a few of them and hopefully get through about half a dozen in the next half an hour or so. And just a reminder to everyone who's watching that if you are on Twitter, the hashtag is hashtag VOF2021 if you want to get involved in a Twitter discussion on what we're doing today. So Chi, our first question is from Laura Rich. Laura, if you're on the call, perhaps you could join us now. Here we go. So welcome, Laura. Laura Rich is at the University of Nottingham and is here representing the Physiological Society today. So please ask your question.
Thank you. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, many people may be inspired to pursue scientific and medical research as a career. What plans can be put in place to ensure and promote equality, diversity and inclusion within science?
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. It's great to meet you, and it's a fantastic question. And so, of course, you're absolutely right. And the pandemic, for all the harm that is wreaked on our society and our health and well-being on our economy, it has put science sort of front and center of our lives. And scientists are more in demand on question time than politicians right now, and many might say that was a good thing. It's also, I think, highlighted as almost nothing else has done, the connection between science and and people's lives. Has made science very tangible, and look, enormous success with the vaccine is doing that sort of on a daily basis. But so I think the short answer to your question is a kind of very definite yes. Yes, there should be, and yes, there always should should have been. When I became an engineer when I entered Imperial in 1984, 12% of engineering students were women. Now, 3 decades later, that has, I think, moved up by 2 percentage points. And there has been, in terms of the representation of women, some areas of science have improved, and I think the Physiological Society, some areas of the science that you represent have improved, but some other areas of science, physics, engineering, and maths, have not improved in gender diversity significantly. And there are also significant lack of diversity when it comes to BAME. BAME men, sort of BAME men are a third less likely to work in STEM than white men. The BAME women are underrepresented even more underrepresented in engineering than BAME men, than white women. We see also in academia, and this is something which I find very shocking, is that whilst we may have early career researchers, the level of diversity reduces significantly as we go sort of up the academic hierarchy. And I was one of those who thought that initiatives like the Athena Swan awards, which I know the government is just sort of rolling back from, did make a difference in that they focused the minds of vice chancellors, etc., and deans and heads of department on the issue of diversity. And I always say that I can walk into a department in any university and tell within about 2 minutes whether they take a diversity seriously, and because it is about the leadership and as well as about the practical steps in terms of the culture and in terms of networking, in terms of support. So I suppose yes, and I think that academia it needs to change. We cannot deliver the high skill, high productivity, high wage economy that we have to come out of this pandemic with, unless we are taking advantage of the skills and talents of all our communities. And moreover, science will never deliver on progress and benefit for all if it does not represent all. So what can we do about it? I think that it needs to be better. It needs to be supported. The funding needs to be there to better report on levels of diversity and levels and change in diversity, and to make sure that the funding takes into account progress made on representing the people who fund to fund the diversity, who fund our science, and ensuring that it is diverse. I think that is absolutely essential, and we've spent far too long not making enough progress in this area.
Great, thank you, Cheers. That's a very comprehensive answer, and hopefully, Laura, that covers a lot of the ground for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura, for your question. In the interest of time, we should probably move on. Our next questioner is Yasmin Mendes. If you'd like to join us, Yasmin. Okay, here we go.
Hello,
welcome,
hi, thank you.
Welcome, Yasmin, and you're representing the Royal Society today, so please ask your question.
Thank you. So my question is about the next climate summit, the COP26. What are the strategic actions and planning regarding the next COP that will guarantee effective participation by representatives of economically disadvantaged and marginalized regions?
Thank you very much, Yasmin, and thanks to the Royal Society. And I wish you every success in your career. So this is a really important question, and I think one of the there are many challenges associated with climate change. Obviously, it's an existential threat to our planet and our and humanity. But I think that ensuring the voices of economically disadvantaged and marginalized regions is a very important part of this. I think, as somebody observed to me that the impact on humans, the impact on human communities across the planet, received far less attention, if you like, than the impact on animal populations across the planet when it comes to climate change. So we, calling on the government to take urgent action to ensure that the COP26, our climate summit in Glasgow, is credible, and that it represents disadvantaged and different communities across the world. We have been asking for the government to, I think unfortunately the merger of the Department for International Development with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and I'll say also, the impact that the reduction in UK aid is having on science research across the world. Because it's, you're nodding your head, so I take it you knew this, but not everybody knows that the significant support, that the UK provided to research communities in the countries affected by climate change, and the fact that I am concerned that would be reduced. So I suppose one of the things would be to reverse some of those cuts, and to ensure that that where we've had collaboration in working on climate change scientific research with countries in the global south and in developing areas, that those voices are represented at COP26. I think that I think generally there's a lot that we should be doing to support. Given it was Commonwealth Day on this week, given our Commonwealth connections, there is a lot that we can be doing to amplify the voices of the economically disadvantaged and marginalised, and to ensure a just transition. And that is in many ways, in every aspect, if you like, of the debate. But I won't go into it because I'm sure I'm taking up too much time. But it's an excellent question, and thank you very much for that.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks very much, Yasmin. I'm sure actually, the whole debate around aid provision is going to be a key issue ahead of COP26 and the impact it might have. So yeah, thank you for commenting on that. Thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank you.
If we could move on to our next question from Dr. Catherine Pointer. Catherine, if you're there, please. Here we go.
Thank you.
You haven't got your video on, do you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Fine, super. Okay, so welcome, Dr. Catherine Pointer, University of Southampton, but you're also wearing a Campaign for Science and Engineering hat today, a case hat, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
The coronavirus pandemic has caused unprecedented disruption to the next generation of potential scientists. With this in mind, how should the UK seek to increase opportunities for children to experience science so that the next generation of scientists isn't lost?
Well, thanks very much, Catherine, for the question. I also want to thank the Campaign for Science and Engineering for all they do to keep science sort of at the top of the agenda. And of course, you're absolutely right. And I'm so concerned on many different levels for the impact that the pandemic has had on education and children, both children's education, but also their mental health and their ability to sort of experience directly all the different sort of inputs which can help determine what their career choices. So I think there's a lot I could say in response to this, but just some we have to ensure that the support is there. And I could critique in detail the government's tutoring program, but we haven't got time to do that. But we need the supporters there for children who have been most disadvantaged by the pandemic. And we know that, unfortunately, it's the children from the most disadvantaged homes to catch up and to ensure that there is support for them in terms of catching up, and also throughout the next stages of their academic and research careers. I would like to see, for example, I know that many universities, including Newcastle University, do a lot of work sort of already in reaching out to more disadvantaged groups and in having summer schools, etc., to support to support those who may not have been able to meet the requirements in the existing school system. So I think we need to see more investment by universities, particularly in supporting people, in supporting young people into sort of into programs through summer schools, etc. We also need, one of the things I've been actually calling for since I first entered Parliament 10 years ago is to have some sort of coordinated way in which schools and industry and science and research can hook up. You know, there are many different initiatives, many companies, there's STEMETs, there's many companies do offer sort of, and universities offer to send their staff into schools, etc. But there's no coordination, there's no central point for that. I'm the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Diversity and Inclusion in STEM. We recently did a report into just sort of exactly, this was pre-pandemic, but sort of the education choices and what influence them that young people make. And having that experience of science directly is really important. And so we need to ensure that through both the industry, the private sector, and also through universities and support. And I would like to see more engagement in terms of tutoring, for example, between universities and schools, that those young people who have missed out so much, you know, that we can try and begin to make it up to them in other ways. Because otherwise, I think, as your question implies, already, and we've talked about it already, the low levels of diversity in terms of gender, in terms of race, but also in terms of class, will not just continue, but they will deepen for the next generation of researchers.
Good. Thank you very much. And does that cover the ground for you, Catherine, or is there anything you want to come back on very quickly?
Yeah, no, you have covered the ground. The primary concern that I've been feeling is it's not just kids are missing out on school lessons, it's that they're missing out on school trips and engagement opportunities. And those, we do a lot at Southampton. We have a lab that kids can come to, we have school groups, but for the last year that's been shut down. And that's something that I don't know is uniform across universities and large hospitals. So something that would kind of put that across the whole country to bring kids in and show this is real science is something that I think we now desperately need. And certainly coronavirus has piqued people's interest and children's interest. So it's kind of like strike while the iron is hot and get kids in real life labs to show them what science can really be.
Okay. I think that's a very good point. And I should also mention, you know, our science centres, like the Centre for Life in Newcastle, have obviously been closed during the pandemic, and they did so much inviting children in to engage directly with science. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. And I think the lack of access actually for children to hands-on science is going to be a real issue, which actually all the learning societies on the call, I think, probably will want to think about as well. So thank you very much for that, Catherine, and for the answer, Chi. If we could move on to our next question, Maciej Matuszewski. Maciej, if you're there, join us. Hi, just coming, yeah, I think. Oh, welcome. And you're at the University of Durham, but I think today you're wearing an Institute of Physics hat as well. So welcome.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. My question is about how most early career academics have to spend years moving from city to city on different short-term contracts. And this is driving many highly skilled researchers away from this field, particularly those with caring responsibilities and those from disadvantaged backgrounds. What should be done to improve the precarious nature of many early career jobs in academia?
Well, thank you, Maciej, for that question, and thank you. Also great to see somebody from Durham near me in Newcastle, and thank you to the Institute of Physics. And you raise an issue which has been of great concern to me for many years now, but I think that the pandemic has exacerbated it, as it just has exacerbated, made many things worse. And I often say that the gig economy seems to have started in academia when it comes to early career researchers, because you have been dependent on short-term contracts which do not provide the stability. They don't enable young researchers to plan, and those always, and this is the thing, those issues like this always have a disproportionately negative effect on the most disadvantaged, and those are caring responsibilities, who do still, unfortunately, often tend to be women. They're those who don't have financial advantages or the bank of mum and dad to keep them through, help them get through difficult times, and it is, our science base, is fantastic. We punch above our weight. I'm very proud of our science base, but it is one of those things that unless you continue to protect it and to support it, we can lose it. And supporting the next generation of researchers is critical to that. I think that the pandemic, with the impact it's had, for example, particularly on charity research, the impact it's had on researchers unable to protect PhDs, postgrads, unable to finish their hands-on research, and a reduction in funding for postdoc places is also being very negative. And the Secretary of State for Business said that I was living on a parallel universe when I raised with him the impact that this was having on early career researchers. And I think it's him actually who is totally unable to understand what is that drives our future research, and just sort of find, I don't think, but the impact on researchers' mental health. And I've seen studies which talk about how the impact this has on it. So what do we need to do about it? Well, I think we've got to ensure that there are sort of longer term placement and project opportunity for early career researchers. I would like to see the research councils, and I know that there is some work being done there, the research councils ensuring a minimum time period for each placement, as well as in our support for for private public research partnerships and for research institutes. These should be ways of ensuring that we have more longer term and permanent research positions and fewer short term gig economy research positions.
Thank you, and hopefully that covers the ground for you. We're slightly short of time, so we probably need to move
Sorry.
on. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. So, for our penultimate question today, we have Hannah Neal. Hannah, if you're on the call, could you join us, please? Okay, here we go. Brilliant. So welcome, Hannah. You're at the Japanese English pharmaceutical company, CSci Heptares, aren't you? And I think representing the British Pharmacological Society today. So welcome.
Yeah, that's correct. Thanks for the introduction, Mark. So my question today for Chi is, despite the success of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout in the UK so far, many members of the public remain sceptical about the safety and the importance of the vaccines. What more can be done to educate and engage with the public about the vaccine development and its safety to improve public confidence and the vaccine uptake?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hannah. It's a great question, a really topical and timely question. I'm going to start by saying that it's important that we understand the roots of what I will call vaccine hesitancy, and the different drivers and roots of them in different communities. I think it's also particularly important that we understand where the BAME, what causes the lower uptake of the vaccine, what some of the factors causing the lower uptake of the vaccine in BAME communities, historical racism within the medical communities, particularly actually in the United States, the history of medicines being tested, well, actually not only been tested on Black communities without their permission in the United States and in African countries, as a lack of representation within the science, within the science establishment, and the lack of representation of Black and BAME within the higher levels of the NHS. Although we know that NHS is significantly employs significant numbers of Black and minority ethnic people. So the first place is to understand where some of these things are coming from, and so that in engaging with these communities, it's done from a position of knowledge rather than of ignorance. A second is also to address the sources of misinformation, and I know that the government is finally, I will say, looking at doing some work on this, but we know that the social media platforms are a source of misinformation on everything from the link between 5G and COVID-19. And it's been this way for some time now without any action being taken by government. I think they've put some responsibilities on the social media platforms, which primarily not to profit from misinformation. I think they need to be held to a higher level than that. And then thirdly, it is to, as you suggest, sort of engage with the public about the vaccine development, be sort of transparent and open about the way in which it's been developed and tested. And I think the government, the government has done some very good work in that area, and to have trusted sources, trusted people celebrating the vaccine, and I think celebrating the difference that it's made, but it's celebration of science, but also the celebration of the social impact. So I took part with other Labour, Conservative MPs of Black and minority ethnic MPs. We made a video to encourage people to take up, to get vaccinated. And it's, having trusted sources, and that's nothing that we're trusted, but, local. So for example, having local pharmacies offer the vaccine, as well as the big sort of lighthouse centres offering it, means that there can be more trusted sources that people will believe in.
Thank you, and hopefully that's covered the answer for you. Was okay, Hannah? Was that
yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's also worth just reminding everyone that there's a huge amount of material out there produced by the learning societies on this call, including BPS, but many others as well. So there's lots of information there which people can draw on. We're just about almost at the end, Chi, and we have one final question to ask, which hopefully we can allow time for. And that's from Charlene Fallan if you're there, Charlene. Welcome. So Charlene's at AstraZeneca, but I think you're wearing a Society of Chemical Industry hat as well today. So please do ask your question.
Hi there. Yeah, my question is then, at the moment, recyclable or biodegradable properties are seen as nice to have for a large number of consumers, who often turn these down due to the increased cost that they incur. How can this be changed, and is this something that should be legislation driven or incentivized to encourage development?
Thank you, Charlene. That's an excellent, great question to finish on as we consider, the future of our planet. And one of the byproducts, part of what's happened with COVID, is it has seen a significant increase in single-use plastics for reasons I'm sure we all understand. But we really need to build on the progress that has been made in areas such as, for example, to answer your question, we saw that legislation, when it came to plastic bags in supermarkets, had a huge impact in a way which encouragement, and I think it's also really interesting to note that so many people, I think the polls show that people now support that and support the change that made, and we have issued 5 billion plastic straws that we use in England alone, and 10% of cotton buds which are flushed down the the toilet. So I think to answer your question, it has to be a mix of both. And I would also say, science itself has a significant contribution to make in terms of material science and the ways in which the development of new forms of biodegradable plastics, which are both easier to use and more convenient to use. So I would like to see I would like to see greater sort of education, greater focus, on the reuse, recycle, repurpose, the 3 Rs, the circular economy. I think it's also something that young people, school children in particular, are very inspired by. But we also need to stop the UK sort of exporting its waste, and to have more waste that we address. Here, and I know the Tories have the government has a plan to eliminate all avoidable plastic waste by 2042, which is years behind schedule and has only got weak proposals. And we feel that those need to be toughened up. I mean, I could go on for this, but there's also the huge issue coming down of recyclable batteries, or the batteries of the use of batteries in our. If we move to batteries in electric vehicles, we need to have better and more effective ways of recycling them. And so I think it's a mixture of education, legislation, and scientific progress.
Great, thank you very much. And Charlene, hopefully that answered your question. Good, thank you very much. That's great. So that does in fact sort of bring us to the end of the set series of questions that we're going to run through for this morning's session. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and giving up your time. Having the Shadow Minister for Science, Research and Digital on is great. We tried to cover all angles, and we had, of course, the Science Minister Amanda on before you this morning. So
yes,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.